Hello everyone. One of my students asked about the stress of Korean, so today I made this video about the prosodium of Korean, including the length of vowel sounds, high and low, intonation, and stress. According to the standard language rules of modern Korean, only the length of vowel sounds can surely be said the prosodium in Korean. However, in the case of high and low, it appears in some dialects such as the Gyeongsang, the south area of Korean dialect. Also, intonation or stress can indicate the speaker's intention of speaking or expressing emotions. Shall we look at one by one? First, the length of vowel sounds. Currently, the Korean Standard Pronunciation Rule recognizes the length of vowel sounds as the prosodium. We distinguish between long and short vowels in a word because the meaning of a word can be different depending on the length of vowel sounds. For example, 눈, 눈, 밤, 밤, 말, 말. And there is a rule that long vowels are pronounced only on the first syllable of the word. 눈보라, 첫눈, 밤톨, 햇밤. However, many Koreans found it difficult to distinguish and pronounce. Next, let's look at intonation. We can distinguish the type of sentence, the speaker's emotion or attitude by intonation. When the sentence and intonation rises, it is an interrogative sentence or an expression of surprise. In the case of declarative sentences, imperative sentences, and recast sentences, the sentence and intonation is lowered, which gives a more friendly feeling. If the sentence and intonation is flat, it shows the same declarative sentences, imperative sentences, and recast sentences, but gives a more business-like feeling. For example, 책을 읽어요. When we rise the sentence end, it is a question that asks if you are reading a book. 책을 읽어요. If we lower simply the sentence end, it explains the situation in which you are reading a book as a declarative sentence. 책을 읽으세요. Raising the end and then lowering it slightly becomes a command to read a book. 책을 읽어요. If we gently raise the end and drag it slightly, it becomes a request to read a book. In the following cases, the speaker's intention to speak differs depending on the intonation. 이 초콜릿을 누가 사왔어요? It is to ask who bought the chocolate. 이 초콜릿을 누가 사왔어요? You want to make sure the fact whether someone bought the chocolate. Next up is the stress. Sound dynamics exist in all languages. Compared to English, Korean has a very weak stress. In Korean, stress is usually placed on the first syllable of a word. 학교, 사랑, 바람. If there are more than 3 syllables, or if the first syllable has no final consonant, the second syllable is stressed. 고양이, 해바라기, 아름답다. However, even in 3 syllables, if the first syllable has a final consonant or a long vowel, the stress is on the first syllable. 정거장, 방송실. You don't have to memorize this stress rule. This is because the position of the stress within a sentence is different. 바람이 불어요. 사랑하는 사람에게. So, when reading a sentence, don't put too much stress on the first syllable of every word in the sentence. If you feel I put the stress on the first syllable of each word in my videos, it's probably because I pronounce it very slowly for beginners. In Korean, stress does not distinguish the meaning of words, and only sentence stress appears. It refers to placing stress on a syllable of the part to be emphasized in a sentence. 어제 어디에서 영화를 봤어요? 친구 집에서 영화를 봤어요. 어제 어디에서 뭐 했어요? In this sentence, the speaker is more curious about where than what. So he emphasizes where. If you are more curious about what he or she did, you need to put more stress on the what in the sentence. 미술관에서 전시를 봤어요. In the case of the particle 은는, the meaning may change depending on the stress. 제니는 열심히 공부를 합니다. It is a general narrative. 제니는 열심히 공부를 합니다. It could mean that compared to the other students, Jenny, she only studies hard. In Korean, it can be said that the stress is not in each word, but in the stage of reading by punctuating. That is why it is important to practice reading sentences with proper pause. So, how should we read or speak it? The most important thing for beginner learners to pay attention to when practicing speaking and reading is pause reading. If the pausing is wrong, you cannot clearly communicate what you are trying to convey. The sentences become completely different, or it becomes difficult for the listener to understand the context. For example, 오늘 밤나무를 사요. It means I buy a chestnut tree today. 오늘 밤 나무를 사요. It means I buy a tree tonight. Basically, you can read with a pause in the spaced part. However, if you pause too much, the meaning may not be conveyed and the words may be cut off. So first, it is read after a punctuation mark such as comma, period, question mark, or exclamation point. Read a little shorter after a comma and a little more rest after a period, question mark, or exclamation point. 어제 친구의 생일이었어요. 그래서 생일 파티를 했어요. Second, read the sentence with the meaning-centered pause so that the meaning is clearly understood. We will take a closer look on the next page. For example, 삼겹살을 먹을 거예요. This time the sentence is long. 이번 주 일요일에 친구와 같이 한국 식당에서 삼겹살을 먹을 거예요. It's not easy to understand the content accurately if you read it at every space, right? It doesn't even sound natural. So, read it with the meaning-centered pause. 이번 주 일요일에 친구와 같이 한국 식당에서 삼겹살을 먹을 거예요. If your semantic unit is expanded, it can be also be read in a pause like this. 이번 주 일요일에 친구와 같이 한국 식당에서 삼겹살을 먹을 거예요. The length of a semantic unit that can be read at a time varies from person to person. As your Korean learning skills improve, your units of meaning can be expanded. Practice reading slowly and accurately at first. What you need to be careful of is don't pause between the noun and particle. 한국 식당에서 삼겹살을 먹을 거예요. Or don't pause in the middle of a single noun or verb. 삼겹살을 먹을 거예요. Many students say they want to speak naturally like Koreans. Then you will need to do some practice, right? Practice speaking and reading your own sentences which you made with grammar and vocabularies you already knew. If you have any questions, please leave a comment. Thank you. 감사합니다. 다음에 봐요.